successes that you have. But now we'll talk a little bit about West Bergen. How many people don't know of West Bergen? Might be a good thing. If everybody knows about us, that's great. But I'll start the presentation and we can go from there. Okay, just some quick facts for folks about West Bergen. I'm going to use my cheat sheets just so I can look at you more than the screen. Some great things that a lot of people may not know about, some facts about mental health. One, one out of 4 American families has a relative who's affected by mental health. Mental illness typically strikes young people in their most productive years, 16 to 25. Families from all walks of life are affected regardless of age, race, income, religion, or education. Mental illness devastates families and ill persons. And what many people know, but unless you've experienced it yourself, family life is very disrupted by the effects of mental health. Some history about West Bergen. We were established in 1963, so we're in our 52nd year. And it was a nonprofit organization formed by a bunch of community volunteers who sought government support to establish a mental health center with comprehensive services. Initially, when we started, it was primarily for children's services, and the first offices were located, you know where the Spotless Cleaner is on Godwin when you come into Ridgewood? Right above there. Okay? And the staff at the time was an executive director, a medical director, some support staff for day and night shifts, and 4 part-time counselors. In 1976, we got our first contract with the state for hospital services for our partial care program, which we still have today, where about 40 consumers come to us every day to our location on 120 Chestnut Street for day services. They're in some classes about life skills. They receive medicines. They are fed, and it's a place for them to come. And they also receive therapy there. And in 1977, we had our first supervised residence, which is a residence that is monitored 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. The history, as Russ alluded to, West Bergen represented the 13 communities that represent the western part of the county. And as you can see, I've highlighted 2, which I think you guys know about. We'll talk a little bit about and drill down into exactly what that means for these 2 communities. Currently now, we have 3 outpatient centers. We had 4, we closed one down in Oakland for a space that we were renting there and a restructuring that we're going through. So we have 120 Chestnut Street, which is our original location, 615 Franklin Turnpike, and 1 Cherry Lane in Ramsey. Cherry Lane in Ramsey is our Center for Children and Youth, and that's where a lot of our programs focused on our kids and adolescents take place. We have 9 group homes, 3 of them in Midland Park, on Cross, Erie, and Madison Avenues. For the most part, people who know that they're there, we know we haven't experienced any problems or anything else, but it's just like any other neighborhood house, except we happen to have members of our community there. We have several licensed, we're licensed by the state of New Jersey, and we also maintain many apartments throughout the county. Today, West Bergen has 230 full-time and part-time staff, 110 counselors, 46 licensed social workers, and you can see the list of different people that comprise what West Bergen, who West Bergen serves each and every day. This is our service area today. Now we're in 145 communities in New York and New Jersey, and I know this is difficult to see, but if you look over here, we have folks coming from New York City, Staten Island, and Trenton, and as far out as, I don't know, out there. Glory Towns mean. So you can see our reach is, what it really shows is that we're still, a host of our clients come to us from essentially the 13 communities in the greater Bergen County area, but it also says that our reach is growing. And our reach is growing primarily because of the fact that people are choosing to come to us for the programs and services that we provide. Is that they can drive by a lot of places, but they choose to come to West Bergen. And part of that is because of the excellent care and the leadership that we have in, like any service organization or nonprofit organization, it's the people that you serve that are your primary focus. And that, I apologize, we couldn't get it. This was Google Analytics. They only give you a picture this big. I guess you had to buy it if you wanted something nice. So our revenue sources, we get over $2 million in state contracts. We get about $250,000 from the county, about $4.7 million in earned income from outpatient partial care and residential services, and fundraising is about $945,000 a year. So fundraising represents probably anywhere between 10 and 13% of the operating budget. So my job gets a little harder every year because our volume seems to be expanding, and I have a good core group of folks that I work with, and we are determined to make that goal for this year. Cost of doing business, 85% of every dollar goes to direct costs for staff and staff-related expenses. $7.5 million covers salaries, benefits, malpractice, as you would imagine. And we have about $1 million of depreciation, cleaning, housekeeping, and other things. The community needs for services. Our activity has risen. We've seen an increase in 14% in outpatient services, 6% increase in our residential revenue, which means more people are using our residences. And our fee income is ahead. Our access statistics, that's how we take people in. It demonstrates clearly a demand for more services. As a matter of fact, we're currently on a waiting list. And you never really want to be on a waiting list. It's almost like when an emergency room goes on divert, if you will, and they have to go to other places. But the volume is growing, and we're trying to meet those demands as quickly as possible. And also on a local level, we have a contract with the Flow High School system, which is Franklin Lakes, Oakland, and Wyckoff, and Ramapo, Indian Hills, and we do screenings for them for students who, in the school district, if they need to be assessed for a host of things. Now we're going to talk about here, service in our community. We have 1,248 clients actively. 52 are from Midland Park, 56 are from Wyckoff. So about 8.65% of our client base comes from the two areas which your Rotary Group Club represents. It's a host of things, and you take into consideration the group homes and other things, but as that graph showed before with all the little red dots on it, you can see it's still local where we do a great deal of our service. Next slide is going to tell you about the types of services we provide in the community, in your locale. That represents, I'm sorry that it's so small, but it's between ADHD, anxiety, Asperger-related services, general counseling, independent living, our partial care, substance abuse, and our group homes. So you can see it's a diverse group of things that we deal with, which also speaks to the scope and the breadth of what the services that West Bergen does provide. The road ahead for us, we are currently in negotiation to relocate our facility on 615 Franklin Turnpike and some other locations to a new location on in Mahwah. I apologize, I don't know the exact address, but there's a sports club right behind it, the New York Sports Club, and there was a corporate park next to it. I think it's on Wyckoff Avenue. Yeah. And it's right on the Mahwah-Wyckoff border. Yeah. And one of the reasons we were looking at that is to consolidate some of our services, which we feel will streamline some of our internal efficiencies, We wanted to have something that was along the line, so you could literally go from 120 Chestnut to the Mawa location and straight up to Ramsey, as far as, because we know this is going to be a shift for some of our clients and their families, so that we wanted to make it as easy as possible. And also we are working with the town of Franklin Lakes, the Bergen County Housing Authority, and a private developer about creating 40 units of special needs housing for individuals with Asperger's and other disabilities, in which we will have an integral role in the management of that, not only from a physical standpoint, a physical plan standpoint, but also from the mental health side of things and the caring for that. That's still down the road. It goes through. It seems all signs are pointing towards that, but it speaks to the reputation of the organization, where they would want to partner with us as far as engaging in this. The town of Franklin Lakes has been very supportive of it, and we seem to be getting a lot of positive feedback about it. So if you see it in the paper, you'll know that, and you'll have a little bit more information about it. So now let's talk about philanthropy, which is what I do, creating a culture of philanthropy. And you guys know it. You live it, you breathe it, you do it every day. But creating a culture of philanthropy is about an attitude. It's about an understanding and a behavior about your organization. And people who are invested in an organization are for many reasons. And one of it is that they believe in the mission, and they believe in the good things that they're doing. It's very hard to come to a Rotary meeting or to come to any other nonprofit organization and just sit there because, you know, it's something you need to do for your resume. You folks don't need to do anything for your resumes. You guys are here because you have a commitment not only to the mission of Rotary, but to your community and to the people in your community that could use your help. And you know, it's a great thing to do. And you know, when you hear about other people who volunteer and things of that nature, there aren't as many volunteers as there used to be. And one of the big goals that we have is trying to convince millennials about the value of volunteering. My personal opinion is once volunteering became a checkoff on community service in schools, I think now that it's a difficult thing to continue that. But I think to continue that after high school or into college or into their professional lives. But I also think too that by examples of Rotary clubs, people who sit on boards, people who are engaged in their church or religious communities, or they do other service projects. I think they're the best examples for the next layer of those leaderships and volunteers. So when we talk about a culture of philanthropy, who really creates and maintains that culture? It's everyone. Everyone in the organization. So from the guy who comes in and opens up and turns on the lights every morning to the CEO. If there is not a culture of philanthropy within your organization where everybody's on the same page and is working towards the same goal, it makes it a little bit more challenging from what you have to do. So how do you create a culture of philanthropy? You're sensitive and to and aware of others. And as you know, working with a dynamic group of people from different facets of life and professional acumen, that sometimes those things could be challenging. You provide quality service. You guys provide quality service. Our goal is to maintain and provide quality service. We, at West Bergen, we send out surveys to our consumers, and which is a online survey which goes to a national organization, and we get rated. And then we see the opportunities where we might be lacking in a service, or where we excelled, or where from the prior survey we've addressed an issue and are able to celebrate the success of that. And the other thing that you have to do is be an active listener and understand about what that person wants and what their desires are and how they want to engage themselves. Because if you use the right people in the right place, you're going to see the success from your events and activities that you do. And relationships are for the long term. In philanthropy, there is something, you know, you can ask somebody for money and get a gift, but if you build a relationship, you'll get the gift. And you'll see it internally here. You'll see it, we see it at West Bergen and other nonprofits, where you see those people who make those life-changing gifts of hundreds of millions or billions of dollars. It's not because they woke up one day and drove by a place and said, hey, I got a couple of billion I got to unload. Let me look at this place. It's really based on the fact that they have an established relationship with an organization. And it's not necessarily the organization itself. It's the people that are engaged in that organization. People give to people. They don't give to buildings. And people forget that sometimes. And if they don't have a strong relationship, right? If there are many people in this community who have the capacity to do many great things, but without the relationship, your organization is not going to be the one that's going to be in their philanthropic priorities. So how do you engender that? How do you build that relationship? So the next slide is Philanthropy of West Bergen. Like every organization, we're mission focused, right? And donor centered. By donor centered, that means we have a constant cycle of cultivation, solicitation, and stewardship. We're always educating people about our services. We try to connect the donor to the meaning of the gift. Her standing up today and telling the story connected everybody and understood that what you did in that circle, whether you were handling the parking lot, whether you coordinated the food, whether you're out there helping out or you made a donation yourself, everybody now knows that whatever they did made a difference. And that is probably one of the biggest strengths that any philanthropic organization can have, is if you constantly remind folks about how important their gift is and their support is. They're more likely to come back, they're more likely to help out. How do you make your organization a philanthropic priority for those people in the community? When you think about all the local businesses, the sports teams, the Rotary clubs, the Kiwanis clubs, West Bergen, will you take an ad? Will you donate a gift card? Will you do this? What is it that is going to make your organization stand out from the rest? And a lot of it is the relationship you have. A lot of it is that you're good stewards and you thank them for what they do and you recognize them appropriately. And the other thing is that they believe in your mission because they see the results of what goes on. The other thing is that I'm very big on is the thank you in philanthropy. By industry standards, you should be thanking your donors 7 times throughout the year. And people say, well, how do you do 7? Well, somebody will make a gift, they get a letter that says thank you. Then somebody may call them and say thank you. Then you'll get a letter maybe halfway through the year saying, how is your gift being utilized? You'll be listed in a program or a publication. You'll be listed in online activities. You'll be invited to a reception or to something else. So you can see it works up. And people say, well, that seems like a lot, but if you get into a best practice about it, then it becomes very, almost like second nature to you. And there are organizations that have certain policies about acknowledging gifts within a certain time frame, or that they will be listed in a certain report, or they're engaged in different things. And there are things that attract people to their organizations, and one of them is stewardship, and the recognition is that whether I gave $5 or I gave $5 million, you know my name, and you thank me. And that's the next time they get a piece of mail, the next time they get something in the paper, or see an article in the newspaper, they'll feel good about the fact that they can say, you know what, I support them and I believe in what they do. What we call our tactical operations is a combination of direct mail, personal solicitations, and special events. Shameless plug, November 9th, Night of Fine Dining. We're hosting it. It's our 23rd annual. Last year's event, we honored Philip Wilson, who was our chairman, and that event grossed over $105,000, and we netted about $75,000. We had about 330 people at it, and this year's event is going to be up at Indian Trail Club, so there'll be information going out, and we'll share it with Russ, and Russ could share it with you guys. And we have a couple other events during the year. We have a tennis event in June at the Upper Bridgewood Tennis Club, and we have a bunch of select fundraisers, if you will, people who open their homes, their clubs, or things to us where we have the opportunity to speak with people and talk to them about West Bergen and how they can help. Other ways in which we do it is we establish philanthropic and community partnerships. Rotary, Keller Williams, Janssen Pharmaceuticals, and the local Alex and Ani in Bridgewood. There are all organizations that support us, whether through outright contributions, they come to an event or an activity. Keller Williams came to one of our group homes in Ridgewood and spent the morning doing plantings and cleaning up and doing like a spring cleaning for it, so that when our clients come back to their residence, it looks better within the community, and it's a relationship. And we started a relationship with them, and they're more than happy to come back. Janssen Pharmaceuticals has come in and painted some of our group homes. As a matter of fact, they've adopted one of our homes up in Ramsey, where at Christmas time they collect things for new bedding, new curtains, clothes, and things of that nature. So it's about finding the right people in the right place, and you have great volunteers on the corporate or the organization side who we've brought into the fold, and it only makes it our reputation rise in the community, but also allows us to provide more services for those who need it most. We try to be as visible as we can in the community. You know, everybody wants to be in 201 magazine, right? You get the magazine, where's the first place you go? You don't look at the ads in the front. Everybody flips to the nonprofit page to see who's in there. That does a lot because it raises the visibility of your organization. We participate in the Ridgewood Street Fair, the Ridgewood Health Fair. If there are local organizations that ask us to come and give a talk or to do something like this, we try to make ourselves get out there as best as we can. We have a newsletter that comes out twice a year, and we have a monthly newsletter that is online. And also we are getting into the age of Facebook, social media, with social media, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. I don't know how much you guys use it. I am still learning it. So how can you help? I'm almost done. 2 minutes. I'm on my last one. 20 minutes. How can you help us? Partner with Best Bergen. If you have an event or an activity, or there's something that you see of one of our services that aligns with your mission, we could work with you. Hold a clothing drive for our PC gift shop, which is our partial care program where our clients come in. We've had people make clothes donations of new, clothing that they can purchase, because part of the life skills they have to learn is the fact about purchasing items and things of that nature. A volunteer day, and with your younger groups, like it's Rotaract or Interact? Which one is
Both.
it? Both. Okay. Educate the youth about mental health. As you saw in the first slide, the age group of where mental health has its biggest effect is 16 to 25. That's right in the sweet spot of most of these younger kids. And a little bit of education could go a long way. And the education isn't necessarily for the kids themselves, but also for the parents and other people, because there are signs and things that you just may pick up on. And the last thing is to be an advocate for West Bergen. If you hear about our name, you know a little bit about us. If people speak about us, you could say, yes, that's something that we know about. We understand their mission, and we know that they do good work. So, I am done.